Welcome to episode 800 of Salsido Paranormal. That is episode 800. Um, I'm your host, James Salsido. Here tonight with Jen, the Arcane Observer, the co host of the show. And tonight we'll be talking about the Dogman phenomenon as it relates to or is separate from possibly the whole werewolf phenomenon as well. As always, you can find all episodes of the show along with links to social media, ways to listen, and ways to support the show at the podcast website, and that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. And the support is never expected, but always appreciated, as are expenses in making these shows. And that support, you can do that a few different ways through either PayPal or the Patreon feed or through the merchandise store. Please check out the links in every episode description for friends of the show, of course, for Jen, the Arcane Observer, and her channel, as well as for Michael Strange and the Trouble Minds radio show and the Trouble Minds radio network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where you can hear my shows and all kinds of other amazing shows. They're 24/7. So I want to thank everyone that's listened at all so far to this show since I started it almost 5 years ago now. And everyone who supported it in any other way as well. Because 800 episodes, that does not seem like it should be, like it's accurate, but I am going by the literal counter on my podcast hosting website. They have a counter on there that tells you how many episodes you have. So, and of course with Patreon, it's actually more than 800, but just going, it will be more than 800, but with this, it's, with that, at least we have that to count. So, makes it easier on me. That way I'm not having to count manually. But, yeah, so that's amazing that we've made it this far and looking forward to, hitting 1,000 episodes next year, next summer at some point. It's looking like. So, but yeah, thank you all for being here and listening in. We had thought we might have a third voice on the show tonight, but they were not able to make it. But that's okay. We will hopefully have them back. That would be Mike. Actually, that would be Michael Strange of Trouble Minds Radio. We'll have him on some other time, and that'll be good. So, but I think that's basically all I had for now. So I'm really interested in this topic because it actually has a connection to my state where I live, which is Michigan, where I was born, and that's of course something we'll get into more here. But with the whole, I did find out it was the northwestern part of the state where the Dogman was sighted. But yeah, thank you, sweets. But to get into this, let's bring on the co-host of the show, Jen. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Okay, yeah, it's too bad that Mike wasn't going to be able to make it. It's too bad.
Yeah.
Because it would have been really fun to have had him on.
Yeah, we'll have him on some other time for sure. That'll be good. So,
I guess it was up in the north region of your state, wasn't it?
Yep, northwestern part of the Lower Peninsula. So not quite the absolute northern part, but still pretty far up there for me. It's a good sized state overall. It's not tiny or anything. So, but yeah,
I remember seeing a picture that somebody had caught, and it looked like this enormous German Shepherd wolf looking picture. I'll find it. And they're standing upright, and the person initially was just taking a picture of like a waterfall. And beside the waterfall, you can see the dogman or the werewolf or whatever you'd call it. And it's holding something white, like a small white dog.
Oh, wow.
And I'll have to find that picture. It looks like it's carrying like a pet with it or something. But I'll find it and try to post it. One sec.
No problem. Yeah. That's the thing too with all these creatures out there, the Dogman, werewolf, even Bigfoot. There's been reports of them having basically gone after smaller animals as food as well. So that's a possibility there too. Unfortunately for people and their pets and everything, which is terrifying to think about. But I know that's been a thing I've heard about over the years, that sometimes they don't like other animals, and or they do like them, but it's more of a form of a meal. So, but yeah, so I'm not sure here. I guess we can start with the earliest reports, or the older reports of this kind of figure, this Dogman. And so I have a few articles here and talk about this. This first one is from intothewonder.wordpress.com, and it talks about it has the title here is Wondrous Tribes, and I'm going to probably butcher the pronunciation of this, but cynocephali, and that is basically the idea of a dog-headed. It actually means literally dog heads, apparently, according to the article here. They're described by many people around the world, throughout time, even classical authors who talk about encountering them, or there being various species of them in all kinds of places: Libya, Ethiopia, Central Asia, and India. Some are also said to be in the U.S. They were said to be in the U.S. In earlier times as well. And I just said like 3 times. Anyway, so this article here is talking about how the status of this as humans was debated in classical and medieval writings and times. Saint Augustine apparently wondered whether they possessed human souls. There was one case of okay, it goes on to other things here. Talks about the Europeans coming to North America, and how when they did, they heard reports of the people that were already there talking about these figures. But so, and of course, the article here is a little bit more skeptical. It wonders if there were misinterpretations or things like that, or exaggerations or whatever on the part of everyone involved, which is, I guess, always possible. But still, there's these sightings that go back throughout time. There's also, of course, famous figures in religion and or mythology around parts of the world, Egyptian gods in particular, like Anubis and others. I'm not going to try to say those names. They were depicted as having dog like heads, either jackal or wolf heads, 5,000 years ago. So, looking at apparently there's even, I guess you could say, references to this in the terms of ancient burial sites, burial mounds in Kentucky and other places where there's remains of a human body where the jawbone and front portion of a wolf skull was cut to fit over the human's mouth, their head. So, which is also fascinating that they would have done that. So yeah, that's this first article here I found. So it talks about Columbus and everything as well, but it mentions other Europeans. So I thought that was a neat way to start this. This idea goes back quite a ways, it seems.
Yeah. Yeah, the cynocephali. I was looking for the account of where they were characterized as being, like in warfare, that they were this fierce sort of warrior tribe. Posted the picture that I was talking about of looks like what people are accounting that they think it's a dogman or a werewolf or a cynocephali. And I posted that over there in the chat. You can see it. I don't know if you can see the photograph. I think it did post just fine, but it looks like it is holding like a little something. But
Yeah, it
yeah, I
does.
think the contention about whether or not they were just, accounts of barbarians, but I think you would just say, barbarian or warlike tribe, and you wouldn't make a reference to them being specifically like looking at the way that they did or being depicted the way that they were so often. And there were
Hmm.
even accounts that they were, you know, about like how they talked a certain way, and it was almost like that they were talking through like the way that you were to imagine like a canine, that kind of language. So I think that even accounting for them like in that regard is different than if they were actually just encountering a strange tribe or, something like that. But so I think that the fact that they gave it so much weight in historical accounts and everything, that there is a good argument that there was such a being, or that there might still be. But I would also think too that they could have been something that would be sought out to kill. Even that would be unacceptable if they were encountered. If it if there were whole, I guess, towns or villages of these types of creatures, which just sounds so bizarre, but it's looking back in history, it's something that I don't know why we can't accept the concept of there
Yeah.
being such a creature, you know. Could be.
Well, I
I
think
don't know.
yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that there probably could have been people that did use, I mean, I know we know skulls and parts of skulls have been used as decoration and other things throughout time. So there could have been people that did use, um,
Mhm.
the parts of the scalp or the skull of canine animals as armor, as decoration, or as intimidation. Even there could have been
Intimidation.
that
Yeah.
right along with the actual beings. I don't. There's always this. So often there's this idea that things have to be this one way, and
Right.
I've always gone against that. Where not necessarily there could have been both. So I think that's something important to keep in mind, because how do we know that all these options aren't out there?
Absolutely. Um, hold on a second.
Yep. So I did find in this. Now I found another article here. This one is from ancient-origins.net. They're actually, if I could, if I could read articles the way I used to, or read things text visually for long periods of time, I could see myself spending a lot of time on this website, this Ancient Origins, ancient-origins.com, because they have a ton of articles. And every so often they pop up when I'm doing research on things. So I definitely recommend the site to anyone that, if you're looking for a good way to spend some time or kill some time, and you don't mind reading, there's a lot there. But this article here, it covers some of the same things I mentioned from the first article uh, about the Egyptians and other parts of the world. It does also mention that, uh, and I think this is something that we were talking about last week, but we didn't have the information or the references. The case of Saint Christopher, who was the one that had the head of a dog, um, that which may have been the result of a misinterpretation, of course, in the article here. Um, it may have come from the misinterpretation of the word canonus, which is basically to say that they're from a certain part of the world. I believe it was, let's see here, I'm looking at here, this article here. I believe it was Canaan, the actual part of the world. But where the church's view is, of course, that these people that had these dog heads, they did have them, but once they, of course, accepted the religion of the church, the Orthodox Church, that those features, those dog-like features, would go away. So there's that case as well, and that's fairly common among religions to sort of um, view other parts of the world, other peoples as being not exactly human until they conform to the larger system of belief that they're encountering, or that has shown up. But I'm just looking at this paragraph here. So lost my spot. And so apparently this happened, that was referred to by the Greek as well. But there's a book that was put out in a book, or a series of books called The City of God, book 16, chapter 8, written by Augustine of Hippo. The Christians, says in that article here, the Christians had the story of the abominable, in quotation marks, who had the face of a dog and lived in a city of cannibals. Once baptized, the dog-like features disappeared. The Eastern Orthodox Church viewed Saint Christopher as having the head of a dog, which may have been the result of a misinterpretation of the word canonus, as I just read, which is to say canonus, and they have different spellings, or, of course, the word canine. And it says later there was a German bishop and poet, Walter of Speyer, wrote of St. Christopher as a large cynocephalic figure from the this area, this Canadians that barked and consumed human flesh. So you have these writings throughout time here. When Christopher met Christ, of course, according to the literature, he was baptized, at which point his dog-like features went away, and of course, confirming the views of the Christians at the time. So that's just another example. I think I'm hearing fireworks going off in the distance. That's lovely. So anyway, they're not loud. I'm just noticing them. But yeah, they're definitely fireworks. Anyway, so this continues in the Middle Ages, as the article says here. There was also, and I find this fascinating because this is a completely different part of the world here. There was in China, or in Chinese legends, there was these writings called The History of the Liang Dynasty. Not sure. In the writings, it says that there was a Buddhist missionary described an island to the east of Fusang, which was inhabited by these creatures, and the island could be referring to, according to this article here, Japan or America. So that's fascinating as well. Different places referencing other places as well. So yeah, this is something that comes up over and over again, and I think even up till today, of course, with the reports now. There's just one more paragraph left here. I might as well sort of summarize it. It says that the repeated appearance of these dogman-like creatures in various ancient writings, legends, and let me see, myths. There we go. Found my spot. It presents a common theme in human history, and these stories have held many purposes, from depicting religious figures to depicting a lower form of human, supposedly reserved for those who choose not to follow certain religious teachings, as I mentioned earlier there. And says that travelers may have told tales of these figures or these creatures in hopes of impressing others, or perhaps they truly believe they saw such things, or, of course, the article doesn't say this, but perhaps they actually did see such things. So, but again, this is something that has happened throughout time, and now they're in movies and books and everything else as well. So, welcome back, Jen.
Hey. Yeah, so I was looking through here to find these accounts from historians throughout history talking about them.
Mm-hmm.
And I have here, it's a 2nd century AD. It's Claudius Ailinus. He was a Roman author and teacher of rhetoric who lived in the 2nd century AD. And I guess he says that in a book he wrote, Alien on the Nature of Animals, Book 4, it says, in the same part of India are found the creatures who are called dogheads, a name that they earn because that's just how they look. They have human shape, they are clothed in fur, they walk upright. They are no threat to humans. They howl instead of speaking, but they understand the language of the people there. They chase down wild animals very easily and cook them and eat them. Cook them not with flame, but by simply tearing them apart and letting the sun sear the meat. They keep goats and sheep for milk. I include them among the beasts logically since their language is unintelligible to humans. And then there's like several different other accounts. Like there's let's see, Pappanius Mela, which is a Roman geographer who lived in the 1st century AD. And he writes that in the island of Sinasophili, which lies off the coast of India, there is a race of men who have the heads of dogs and the bodies of men. They are said to be very friendly and to be good friends to the Indians. And then Pliny the Elder, he says, on many of the mountains again, there is a tribe of men who have the heads of dogs and clothe themselves with the skins of wild beasts. Instead of speaking, they bark, and furnished with claws, they live by hunting and catching birds. And it said, according to the story as given by Ctesias, the number of these people are more than 120,000. So, and there's just more and more and more of these accounts. In the land of Punt, which is located in Africa, there's a race of men who have the heads of dogs and the bodies of men. They're said to be very intelligent, to be able to speak the language. And then there are accounts of them, let's see. In the land of Babylonia, there's a race, this is from Berosus, 3rd century BC, of Mantheo. And it says that there's a race of men who have the heads of dogs and the bodies of men. They are said to be very wise and able to predict the future. There's another account of them perhaps having, where they reference them as wizards, even. Let me find it. Let me see. It also says they shoot arrows. Some accounts of the historians say that. Let me look here.
That's amazing, because that does really indicate that they're not just, so many other parts of history would say they're not just dogs with human bodies. They're actually
Yeah,
intelligent and
there's Herodotus. Yeah, exactly. Herodotus says in History's Book 4, these men, it would seem, are wizards, for it is said of them by the Scythians and by the Hellenes, who are settled in the Scythian land, that once in every year each of the Noroi become a wolf for a few days and then returns again to their original form. For my part, I do not believe them when they say this, but they say it nevertheless and swear it moreover. And then Herodotus says in Book 4 also, for in the land of these are found both the monstrous serpents, and the lion, and the elephant, and the bears, and the venomous snakes and horned asses, besides the dog-headed men. Isn't that strange?
that's amazing. Yeah. Yep. So it does sound like they've been around throughout time, and even if the thing that always amazes me is if people are mistaken everywhere all the time. I mean, how can that many people be mistaken about all this? It's the same kind of problem I have with the idea of I've heard of where ghosts or cryptids. It's everyone is making a mistake. Every person, every sighting that has ever happened, it's misidentification. And I've always had a big problem with that because that's a lot of people. So, but yeah, that is amazing. So so from there we go into modern times. I think this is a good point maybe to get into some of the more recent things as well. Unless you had more there, Jen, but yeah, we could get into the more recent stuff too.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of recent accounts. I want to hear what you found and just continue to think about this.
Yeah, and we'll get to Mike is actually here in the chat. Welcome, Mike. Thank you for listening in and
I'm so glad you made it.
Yeah, sharing some things, even though he can't exactly be here to talk this time. We will, like I said before the show, we'll have him on another time as well. But he shared some information he found online here, and we'll get to that as well. But I wanted to get to the Dogman of Michigan sightings and how this happened. So I have this article here. I'm going to close this one. Oops, I think I closed the wrong one. That's always fun. That's okay. It'll only take me a second to get to the right one I wanted. There's this. I found out there's you can click on the the scroll wheel on my mouse, and if you click on the tab title on my browser, it will close the tab, which is most of the time it's a good thing. This time I did not want to do that. So, but anyway, buttons are hard. But I found this website. It's actually a magazine. There we go. This is from a website, Enigmazine, which is actually kind of a cool name in a way. Not the easiest to say, but still neat idea. And this article is titled "The Dogman Phenomenon: The Mystery of the Dogman Legend." So this is referring to more recent things. The Dogman phenomenon, it says, is not new. Of course, it goes over a lot of what we talked about already. But then it goes into the Michigan Dogman. There's a legend that was first documented in 1887 in Wexford County. I think I've heard of that area. I don't think I've ever been there. I don't know of anyone personally that lives there. But again, Michigan is a decent-sized state. So, and that's in the northwest part of the state, and I'm in the southeast part of the state. So, witnesses described a creature with a human torso, which is the body, and the head of a dog or wolf. So again, you have this. This is the other thing that you have as well. This sort of possible variations or connections between, or similarities between werewolves, as we talked about last week, and dogmen. But and so there was a sighting by witnesses that in that county that described seeing this dogman creature. So then in 1987, local radio DJ Steve Cook released a song titled "The Legend," and it's about these dogman legends, these dogman encounters from the past. And it was meant to be, it was fictional, but then apparently after he played that song on the air, he got just a ton of phone calls from people claiming to have seen the creature. I always love that when you have this thing where, oh, this is made up, and then you start finding out maybe not so much. So this article says here that the sightings are not confined to Michigan. Reports have come from across the U.S., from Wisconsin to Louisiana. I've heard of that as well, those sightings there. And this article mentions the Beast of Bray Road. This happened in Elkhorn, Wisconsin, which is not too far from Michigan, relatively speaking. The time frame it happened started in the 1980s, but it goes on to the present. And witnesses describe a large wolf-like creature standing upright and moving quickly. The Beast of Bray Road is often associated with the Dogman and is a major point of cryptid research, the article says here. That's also where I've heard of that, and in association with the researcher and author Linda S. Godfrey, which I have a list of her books that I already included in all the links here, but I'll mention a few of them later because she did a ton of research over the years on this topic. If you've listened to any large amount of podcasts, you've probably heard her on them once or twice or more, depending on how many we've listened to out there, and heard her talking about these experiences people have reported. Even before she didn't start out looking for this, she was working for a newspaper, I believe, and these things started coming to her, these reports. So, and the newspaper itself. There's another sighting or sightings in Manistee. This is Manistee National Forest, Michigan. I believe that is Northern Peninsula of Michigan, if I'm not mistaken. Witnesses have reported seeing a bipedal creature with glowing eyes. This is something that there's some that are seen with glowing eyes, others that are not. And canine features moving around the woods. These sightings are among the most frequently reported in Michigan. So it goes into, there's one more here, so I might as well go over it real quick. The Land Between the Lakes encounter. This is in Kentucky and Tennessee area, the Kentucky-Tennessee border. In the 1980s, so similar time frame, campers in apparently this is an area, Land Between the Lakes area, reported a terrifying encounter with a creature that resembled a werewolf. And the creature, so here you have these, a lot of places sort of use or say that the werewolf is the same as the dogman, even though there are many other places that say they're separate. So take your pick as to what you all want to think on that. But this werewolf allegedly attacked their RV, leaving claw marks, and of course terrifying the witnesses. So, yeah, that's just a few examples there. And we'll go over the physical appearance then, and I'll get back to Jen. But it says the physical appearance. The dogman is often described as 7 feet tall. I've heard taller as well here and there. Muscular and covered in dark fur. His head resembles a wolf or dog, and it has glowing eyes, often reported as yellow or red. The creature is usually aggressive or territorial, but rarely attacks, which is true. I've heard a lot of that. It seems to just want to terrify people, and it usually does. It growls, and it's been seen chasing vehicles or individuals, so it will chase. But again, luckily, from what I've heard, nothing to where it's actually hurt anyone. Although the problem with that is we don't. If anyone was killed, then we may not ever find out about it, depending on the situation, I guess. But witnesses constantly report that the dogman moves both on two legs and all fours, transitioning effortlessly between the two. I've also heard where they just appear and they vanish as well. So, Jen, your thoughts on that so far?
Oh, just I was thinking a lot about the reference that to them being wizards of some kind, and I was kind of looking into that. And I found too in the Hittites, they have references to them as different classes. So the idea of them having different functionaries, or that sort of thing. There's a Hittite account, the Hittite peoples. This is an ancient peoples, but
Mm-hmm.
that wolfmen or bearmen could dance, that wolfmen could run, that dogmen could bark, and that and sing, and that they assisted in administrative activities. And this is I'm on of wolfandmanbook.wordpress.com, and the reference to them out of just in the Hittite culture accounts of that. And there's the Hittite wolf cults, and as evidenced in ancient times by various peoples. And so this is a really neat article. I might post it too. I'll post it in the chat. But the language of it, and hang on a minute, let me look here. Just I wonder about, if they were considered wizards or that they could tell the future, that they were revered in this regard, is a whole different angle about them having access to supernatural powers in some way. But the account of them in Hittite culture is incredible too. I mean, we saw it with the Scythians, and so it's incredible that they are always depicting them, even in this artwork. I'm finding a great deal of artwork, and I have Cynosophily spelt with a K as well. So
Mm.
in this old book right here, it's spelled with a K, so KYNOKEPHALOI. It says, living in the mountains, do not practice any trade, but live by hunting. It's the same sort of account that they cure their meat out in the sun. I'm just really fascinated by the ancient accounts giving a lot of, because in modern accounts, the fact that people are still seeing these creatures is really fascinating,
Mm-hmm.
especially in North America. So that's really fascinating. But I think just the accounts of them being so readily, historically, um, what would you call it? Just being chronicalized and by Greek physicians, by historians, and the account of them as being described so clearly, but then the attributes, it's really interesting. Like right here it says that they speak no language, but they do bark like dogs in a manner make themselves understood by each other. Their
Hmm.
teeth are larger than those of dogs. Their nails are like those of animals, but longer and rounder, and they inhabit the mountains as far as the river Indus. So that's an account from Ctesias in 500 BC.
Wow.
Um, yeah.
It's going
So I just
back.
think it's, yeah, in that account it was. But and then in modern times, though, of us seeing or of people reporting them in North America, it's I think the concept that they could still be existing, but so few in number. There must, and I think that there could have been. I saw a woodcut at one point. I'll try to find it and post it too, where they're hanging. So like, there's this idea that possibly there was sort of a rinsing out of a lot of these mythical creatures. People have talked about that in books I've read. That there was this sort of. So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if I don't know if they were kind of in just for theory, just for talking about that they were maybe sought out and hunted in a way too, along with all these other like a whole concept of if these mythical creatures were wiped out. For example, Python, with the Delphi Oracle, initially it was a great python that lived in that cave according to the mythos. And then that they
Okay.
killed Python. And then the Delphi oracles were giving prophecies simply by inhaling the steam off of the body of um, the conquered python as it was laying over, because I guess there was volcanic. You would think they were just inhaling the fumes in general would be enough to maybe induce such a state. But there was account initially that there was a great serpent that was there at the location where Delphi Oracle was occurring. So I think that it's just really interesting the whole account of, and we have the stories about the all of the Naga and things like that. So you have in this ancient time they were talking about a great deal of creatures that we today, believe that they do not exist, but you had Python in the account there, and now we have the Cynocephali in those accounts, and we have interpreted really interesting that they were making accounts in some cases that these people were capable of turning into a wolf. So there was an account there, and they were amongst this tribe that they were calling the Cynocephali as well, in some accounts. So there we do have a link between werewolfism and the Dogman, but only in a few accounts historically.
Right.
So
I wonder if that whole sort of possible thinning out or eliminating of various species or various types of creatures out there, because we've seen that too with encounters of anything that you might consider to be fae or fairy or elves or dwarves or well, not dwarves but elves or goblins. There's all kinds of reports of that from way back when, but now compared to then, there's not as many of those. They don't seem to be as common everywhere in general as they used to, possibly, unless I'm totally wrong. But I wonder about that. That could be something to look into. This idea of people in different parts of the world having issues with these other beings and possibly waging war against them for either religious or survival or whatever reasons. But um, and making it so there aren't as many now as there was, but they're still out there here and there, and people still have encounters with them. That might be a good topic for a show sometime.
that would be kind of how they seem to be in, recession or in hiding in a way,
Mm-hmm.
reclusive. When I was doing a lot of
Yeah.
research on the Isles of like Ireland and that region over there, it was really fascinating the amount of people who have inhabited that island, and then those things that inhabited that island that were not people, by
Mm-hmm.
accounts of many of the legends of that region, that there were times where that was inhabited by something something out of like the Fey realm, for example. They classify all of that as Fey. any mythical creature, they would classify it as that in a way, or a lot of them, and some of them not, but a huge account of that it was inhabited by magical beings of sort that were almost impossible to make war with. It was
Right.
that they had magical abilities, that they would blend into to their surroundings, that they had a great deal of skill with flint and things like that, which you would think maybe. And here in North America, there's an account of, we know how well, but that was worldwide though. That at that time, people were a great many warrior classes were with the bow and things like that. But there's even the concept of elf shot. I mean, not to get distracted too much from what we're talking about, but
No
the
problem.
account of these people encountering these creatures that they seemed at the time to believe were not human, and that there was a sort of fighting for territories against inhuman creatures. So it wouldn't be too surprising if there were Senosophili at some point, or that there were these types of beings and that they have been pushed sort of into the periphery, you could say almost.
Yeah. Yeah. And the idea of them being wizards, if you think about that now, I think I wonder about that term, because does that refer to just powers that regular people didn't have or didn't think they had, when it comes to teleportation, possibly, or making themselves invisible? All these things that may explain some of the modern sightings where these beings do seem to just appear and vanish.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and in a way that you could almost say is almost like a wizard, or very mystical or supernatural or whatever. I wonder if there's a connection there with those things as well.
But sort of a mastery of their environment or something.
Right.
And then by living so close to it, if you think, I've heard accounts of studies they've done with birds, pet birds like parrots and things like that. That the pet bird, the parrot, there was one study I watched, and the owner of the parrot came home, and was doing this study, and went to one separate room, and there was another person in the room, and they were recording the parrot, and the woman was simply pulling up pictures and looking at the pictures in the study, and the parrot in the other room on the other side of the house was describing aspects of the photograph that she was looking at. So, for example, if she was looking at like someone looking out of a window, it would make reference to that. It was essentially to try to prove in some way, in some regard, that the bird was telepathic. And
Right.
so, and there have been accounts too that, for example, with canines or with cats or with a lot of different types of pets, that they could foretell when their owner was on their way home or fixing to arrive, and it would be like at irregular times. So that you would think that it'd just be something that was it was habitual, but that's not the case. And a lot of times they're in the studies with, I guess you would call it psychism of pets, they have a sort of a supernatural sense of, and in the accounts we were reading about with historic references to the Cynosophily, that they could foretell the future, they could see the future. Somehow, perhaps, maybe if you were to meld the two, where they walk upright, they're bipedal, they have, which would make the bodies of men in their minds, the fact that they are upright would be enough on two legs would be significant. So, I mean, even though they may not be human at all whatsoever, but the fact that they were bipedal would be enough, maybe, that some of the historians considered them human-esque because they were up on two legs. And maybe with the link, though, with telepathic prowess, and the same with them being great warriors, I mean, it would make a lot of sense if they were just right on the cusp where they could make weapons and things like that. And their manner of cooking meat is really interesting, of drying it out in the sun. I don't know, as far as the accounts historically and everything, it's really interesting. But I think as far as why are they wizards, the accounts of animals having supernatural powers to some degree, telepathy, maybe. I could see that
Yeah.
kind of blending together.
Definitely. That's the funny thing about the dogs or the cats knowing when someone is going to arrive. I've heard of the
Yeah.
same thing in some cases with children, where children have told their parents or their relatives that were there with them, that or other relatives or whatever, someone that was watching them, my dad's going to be home, in any moment. And even though he wasn't supposed to be there any moment, and then he would be there.
Yeah.
Similar things like that with children as well. So this idea that, we all may have had or have currently abilities, we just don't always know how to access them as well. So I think that's definitely a possibility as well.
It's like the innocence in children and in animals that they're uninhibited. And
Mm-hmm.
so maybe like there's an inhibition that hasn't set in. There's a filtering or something like that, but that the animals maintain that makes a great deal of sense. And humanity too. I mean, it would make a great deal of sense that they would maintain that if they weren't infringed upon with all of the societal necessities that are cast on them, the responsibility to participate in society the way that we do, and then out of accordance with just our natural world that we're living in here. Um, so I think that it would be completely reasonable to consider that they were considered to be wizards, but also to, I think, just being so close to their environment like that. Like they would not understand our modern environment, though we are masters of it. And it'd be the reverse, you see, is how I would think of it. That
Yeah,
they are masters of that environment that they were, you know, inhabiting.
yeah. I mean, if you put me out in the woods somewhere and on my own, I'm in major trouble. Like
Right.
I'm not gonna do
Yeah.
well.
Well, we're like tame house cats, versus like a panther.
Yeah,
It's significantly different. Yeah.
definitely. So I wanted to get to what some information here Mike shared in the chat. So I'm just going to read through. There's two good-sized paragraphs here. So it says, beginning in the summer of 2009, BAASS, that's Bigelow Aerospace Team, aerospace company team anyway, comprising of 6 investigators, 3 scientists, and 2 technicians, alternated 1 to 2 week missions to interview area residents as well as to deploy sensor instrumentation at Skinwalker Ranch. That's another place we need to do a show on at some point. Not so much the current reality show version of it, but the
Oh, yeah,
actual
for sure.
weather reports. Anyway, but yeah, by March 2010, approximately 30 residents who had reported firsthand encounters were interviewed in their homes. The group comprised lifelong residents of the area, all living within a 1 to 2 mile radius of Skinwalker Ranch. They included 4 local police officers, 11 Ute, I'm not sure, I'm probably saying that terribly wrong, tribes people, so indigenous people there, including a shaman, 12 ranchers, 6 business owners, and the director of the local Fish and Wildlife Office. Half were members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. 11 of the individuals recounted firsthand encounters with a dog or wolf-like creature that could run at speed on 2 legs, sometimes in conjunction with orb-like activity. Its estimated height was 6 to 7 feet. Many of these reported observations took place during daylight hours, which is also not super common. So many sightings you hear about there at night. Some sightings were very recent, only a month or 2 old, while others had taken place a few years ago. All observations had occurred within a 5-mile radius of Skinwalker Ranch. From the details provided in interviews about bipedal creatures, Bass constructed a map showing the migration routes of these creatures, whether these extraordinarily frequent bipedal dog-like creatures overlap with local skinwalker lore is not known. Frequent sightings of small blue, white, yellow, and red orbs that were usually flying low to the ground was a persistent feature of these reports. So, yeah, we definitely need to do a whole Skinwalker Ranch show. But I find
Yeah.
this whole thing with orbs being possibly connected also fascinating, because you hear that with some sightings of creatures out there where they're there and then they change into an orb, or an orb changes into them, or they're both seen, creatures and orbs at around the same time. So that's fascinating.
Yes. Yes. And I think that maybe with these areas where people are not going very frequently, there's a whole concept of like the national forests being a sort of like a borderland, essentially, like a sort of that's their territory for these creatures. There's a whole like sort of storyline about it that a lot of people hold, and I've heard a lot of things, where they're referencing to it, that as the national forest being sort of a location where these sort of mythical creatures we're talking about might reside. So, and it's sort of that border where, there's certain regions of it you can go to, but it's being protected because not just necessarily for hoarding a bunch of lumber, but that it may be the location where they are inhabiting, and they've made a sort of treaties of kind. And it's really interesting. I was listening to some of the accounts of Canadian people exploring up in Canada in the early 90s, late 80s. And there was this one individual, and I can't remember his name now, but he was accounting for how it was so sort of just like prehistoric preservation. It was untouched land. And in it, he described that people that did inhabit the outskirts of it kept these strange pets. One of the strange pets was this enormous, like these, he called them crows, but they were huge. They were these massive, like over the size of a dog, blackbirds that they kept as like pets that were tamed and they could talk and all of these things. And that they were just out there in this sort of preserved, sort of untouched areas of the world. And if you think about even the desert regions with those types of creatures and especially with the orb reference, it is really fascinating, the connection there. Just because I remember hearing about on Skinwalker Ranch, there was I think it was, what was his name? That one co-host, George, not
Um,
the common one, George, but the other George. I can't remember his name right now off the top of my head for some reason. Do you
there's
know who I'm talking about? Nap.
either Nap.
Nap.
Okay, yeah.
Yes. And he was giving an account of an individual who they had sent out. He recounted this. I think it was on a Caravan to Midnight. And he said that there was a guy who went out and he was meditating. I don't know why they did this, but he was out there meditating, and they watched from afar as like a cloud seemed to gather around him, and they began to see what looked like a creature that was around him or something like that. And as he was meditating, so he's like in this whole zone. But as he's in this zone, outside of himself, there's like a portal opening. So there's something funny about the land itself that's lending to it in that case, or just the atmosphere. There may be something to do with that. But the orbs too, I've heard of people that have like alien abduction stories and things like that, or being what they believe to be harassed by it, that they think of the orbs as being sort of scouts that are
Yeah.
going out. And then the concept of tying in with the UFO phenomenon, and as we were talking about previously, is there some type of connection with the Fey realm, or are these creatures in some regard, are they a species that is living alongside humanity and has this whole time? But as we were talking about, that they may be in these recessed regions that are less inhabited by people, maybe even due to some type of an agreement or something of the order. Who
Yeah.
knows?
Well, I mean, look at the way, so often you hear about, I've heard just here and there random stories about people that appear after someone has a sighting, not of an alien like you would think of, but sightings of, let's say, Sasquatch or Bigfoot or anything weird in the woods. And people will show up that look like they're possibly from the government and talk to them about it. And then try to tell
Ah,
them, don't talk about this. This is, none of your
yeah.
concern. This is all secret. So it does make me wonder about, how much the major corporations and governments know about these kinds of areas we're talking about. And they just, they're not going to share, but
Okay.
possible agreements there as well. Yeah, like you said.
Yeah, there was Vic Kundith does the show Dogman Encounters. Everybody
Okay.
should check it out when they get a chance like that. But I used to listen to it a long time ago, and then I haven't listened to it much recently. But one of the stories I remember hearing from him was this account of there was a man that was living sort of on the outskirts. I can't remember what state it was. I think it was like Oklahoma or something like that. And supposedly they were seeing um, dog man creatures, these, and they were coming up and they were taking some of their livestock, but they were not wolves. Wolves aren't in that region anyway, but that they were not wolves. They were like massive, huge creatures. They would just see on the tree line but they would come up and I guess he reported it to the sheriff. And then the sheriff supposedly like kind of had the sort of knowing atmosphere as if, "Oh, I've heard about this before," that sort of thing. But it wasn't so long, and eventually some state officials or some type of higher ups did show up, and they showed up with like all this gear like Rambo or something, like they were going to go into the woods, this sort of thing. But they came out and they were armed and they had all this stuff on according to the story account. And they had this device that he says that when they turned the device on, he had some dogs of his own and they like hit the ground and were like almost like in a sort of seizure state because it was a
Mm,
sort of high frequency sound,
yeah.
and that they turned that on and their intention was, according to the story, to run this creature back. And they were using similar apparatus that was also sensitive for the canines of the guy who was reporting the story. But really interesting as far as he was talking about this sort of guerrilla warfare upon these creatures. It was really neat. I have to find the episode and everything, but it was a very interesting story and account with what we're talking about.
Yeah, I'll have to check out that show too because that does really it really does border on everything paranormal, not just the idea of the creature itself, its physical attributes, but all these other things.
Absolutely.
And I mean, again, not that we try to cover conspiracy so much in the show, but they do pop up within the paranormal and things like that, and these unexplained events.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. Yeah, I definitely think we should do a show on the whole Skinwalker Ranch area in general.
Yes.
I have heard of that account with the guy that went to meditate and something happened
Ugh,
and he was there. He was going to try to contact whatever was there, and I forget. I think it was Knapp told the account
that's
of it, but
it.
it was like the I forget which owners of it was either the original owners or it was the scientists that were there, and they let him do that, and he um
Yeah.
he got scared off. Like he fled. He
Yes.
they saw something and he saw something and sent something and it just scared him off and
Yeah.
never came back again. And yeah, there's just so much there um, that I don't know if I ever want to go there in person, but looking into the
Oh, I
accounts that we're
would.
seeing,
I would like to go. I think that'd be really
yeah,
fun to go.
yeah,
Yeah, and
it'd
just be
be
very cautious. I would just be very cautious. But I think that'd be a lot of fun
yeah, I may
to
have to go
see.
with you. I don't know if if I go alone, but I would go with people. So, but yeah,
Oh, we just, we get campers and just kind of hang back. But like, it would
there
be
we go.
really interesting.
It
Yeah.
would be because you don't have to be
Yeah.
on the property to have anything happen. I mean, there's so many accounts of that.
Right. Just kind of
That's
observe it from afar. That'd be
yeah,
interesting.
that's the amazing thing about that. So yeah, I think we need to cover that area. We still have the black-eyed humanoids to do at some point to cover.
Yes.
But I think also we need to look into the whole idea of I don't know either the hiding or the diminishing populations of um, supposedly mythological beings because I think that's a good
Yeah.
topic as well at some point.
That's a great idea. That'd be
Yeah,
fun.
it does come up in these things. So, and I just have to say, as always, orbs to me they're just so fascinating because again they appear in relation to so many various different kinds of experiences. They
Mm.
don't just they're not just ghosts. They're not just connected to aliens. They're not just connected to cryptids. They're not just seen in houses. They're not just seen in forests. They're not just seen in the sky. They're
Mm.
seen in space as well. All these
Yeah.
things. So Yeah, I think we I don't know. I know I've done shows before on orbs, but we may have to do another one at some point because what the heck, might as well.
They appear to be that they're maybe some type of, I mean, my theory is that they're self-luminescent, sort of
Hmm.
like some of the self-illuminating creatures in the ocean and things like that. I mean, there's that concept too that there's I don't know, and that would lend into shapeshifting that if they would had that kind of capability. So they're never a sort of, but that ties into a lot of different mythos. You know, I don't know. There's a lot to it, but yeah, I think
Yeah,
it'd be wonderful to talk about.
yeah. So we have some good things to cover for future shows, and but yeah, I think this is a good place to stop with these. I mean, we could probably go on for a while about the whole Dogman sightings and all that. Oh, that was one thing I wanted to do. I wanted to mention the I found this and I included it in uh, the description here. But there's this researcher, Linda Godfrey, who wrote a bunch of books on the Dogman topic, and I want to just mention she's written a ton of books on this topic. I'll put it in the chat here again. But if you look up her name, you'll find her on many podcasts as well from over the years. She unfortunately passed away some time ago. But yeah, the Beast of Bray Road. Yeah, Derek, welcome Derek in the chat there. She's the Dogman lady. She's known for that, yeah. But I wanted to mention if you want to do a lot more reading, I found a list here of the books that she's put out. And there's books on let me see, let me just read off some of these titles here. Uh, American Monsters, A History of Monster Lore, uh, Legends and Sightings in America. I Know What I Saw. There's, of course, Monsters Among Us. Uh, let's see, Real Wolfmen. The Beast of Bray Road, of course, is the big one there. So all kinds of other books as well that she's either written or was part of. And so definitely recommend checking that out if you want more material on the subject, because we do what we can here, but to cover a topic from beginning to end would take hours, and we
So
don't have.
thoroughly as done. She covered Spring Hill Jack, and several other ones too. Just a lot of the monsters, supposed monsters. Yeah.
Yeah, she's done a lot of work, which is really
Yep.
amazing. So, but Jen, I mean, you're welcome to stick around and or head out as you need to, Jen. But we're gonna do our trick or treat show next.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you for being here for this one and for being here for
Thank
episode
you,
800.
James.
I really appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Oh, what? Oh, did you say this is? Is it
800.
upcoming or is it
No,
800?
this is it.
Wow. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yep.
Well, congratulations. Yeah, I'm happy to be here with it. I really enjoyed it. Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
And thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really glad
Thank you.
that yeah, thank you. I'm glad that we made it this far, and like I said, another less than a year or so and we'll be at episode 1000. So, but everyone, thank you for listening, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal once I get this command up and running here. And everyone, take care.